Hey everybody, welcome on in, it's Shigatura here. Today we're going to do something a little bit more freeform than last time. Last time was kind of a scripted video. This time we're going to do something more freeform. I'm going to be making a list of my top One Piece moments by arc. So I'm going to go through the list of the arcs. I'm going to be using a list based off of the One Piece fandom wiki, and I'm going to go arc by arc and list my favorite moment from that arc. And then afterward, after I talk about it a little bit, talk about why I like it, what I think is cool about it, I'm going to rank it on a tier list. As you can see, there's a little spoiler blocker down there because spoilers. Don't want you to see the moments before I rank them, but I think that'll be fun. So I figured I'd try out something like this, see how it goes. So to start off with, we obviously got to start at the start, and that is Romance Dawn. The first arc of One Piece, the introduction, where we get all of our wonderful Monkey D. Luffy introduction. We get Zoro, we get all kinds of fun things. But for me, my favorite part of Romance Dawn as an arc has to be Koby and Luffy fighting in the diner at the end of the Shell Town part. For me, there's just something so defining about Luffy in that scene. You really get to see what his nature is when starts he just starts berating Koby to piss him off intentionally to make him look better in the eyes of the Marines. It's it's such a impactful moment for that early in the series, and the send off that comes afterwards where all the Marines stand on the pier as Zoro and Luffy are leaving and salute off into the distance, and it's like, we saluted pirates, I guess we should not eat for a week. It's an early moment, and I know it may not be as hype as but Shanks your arm and uh Lucky Roo just blowing off that one dude's head. But for me, I think it's one of the best moments from Orangetown, or not Orangetown, Romance Dawn. I'm already getting ahead of myself here. As far as ranking it, as far as scenes go, though, I think as a scene, it's probably a solid C tier. So that's where I'm gonna be placing it. Next up is Orangetown. The arc, of course, where we get the one, the only Buggy the Clown. Buggy, come on, guys. We also get Nami's introduction. We get a little bit more of an idea of what pirates are like in this world. Buggy, while not a fantastic antagonist in terms of being an antagonist, is still, I think, better than Alvida. And one of the I think the most impactful moment in Orangetown is probably a lot of people's, and that is Shushu, Shushu the dog, and that whole scene where he's protecting the shop that his owner used to own before he died, and Buggy just demolishes it, and Luffy's like, "You asshole! It's time to bring the pain." It's another very good moment for Luffy, and it's also probably the first, like, I think really emotional moment in the series. The Shanks moment is a little emotional, but you don't really have you've had Shanks for like 5 minutes. To be fair, we've had him for like 10 minutes total through the rest of the series, and people still love him. But I think Shushu, it gets you a little weepy. Gets you a little weepy. As far as ranking Shushu as a moment, I think it's slightly better than the Koby moment. So I'm gonna put it in B tier. Now, I'm not gonna talk about this moment much, so I'm just gonna stay on the tier list screen. The next moment, or the next arc, is Syrup Village, and I like Usopp. Don't get me wrong, I am an Usopp enjoyer. However, his introduction arc is kinda weak. I don't like Kuro. I don't like Kuro at all. And there's not really very many defining moments. So the moment I've chosen is the little gag where the Usopp pirates come into the diner after Usopp's left to come talk to the Straw Hats, and they're like, "Where did Captain Usopp go? Where's Captain Usopp?" And Zoro, just without skipping a beat, looks them dead in the eyes and just goes, "We ate them. We gobbled them all up." It's dumb, but it's honestly like the embodiment of what made early One Piece comedy so funny. And for that, I have to give it major points. So that's where that is. As far as an actual like impactful moment, it is easily the most underwhelming moment of this entire list. So it's gonna go into D tier. Now, next up after Syrup Village is my personal favorite arc of the East Blue, and that is Baratie. Baratie is where I fell in love with One Piece. Has a lot of really fantastic moments. A lot more than Syrup Village does, that's for sure. And for me, while there are a lot of really good moments, the one that stands out to me the most is right at the end. Sanji's goodbye to Zeph, where he gets on the ground and is like, "I've been living under you for years. Thank you, old man." And he's crying, and everyone else is crying, and Zeph is emotional, and I'm crying, and it wonderful, wonderful moment. Obviously, there's a lot of other good moments in Baratie with Mihawk and Zoro's fight. I know a lot of people love that. But for me, the emotional impact for Sanji in that moment is just... oh, it's so good. As far as ranking that moment goes, I'm going to have to put that one as an A tier. I think that is an A tier moment in the series. It is something that still sticks in my head whenever I think about Sanji. I love it. And I love Sanji. Sanji is my favorite Straw Hat after all. Next up is Arlong Park. Arlong Park. What I hear a lot of people say is their favorite East Blue arc, and very understandably. It has a lot of really good high points, very emotional. Nami's backstory is sad and wonderful at the same time. Good stuff. And as it probably won't come to many people's surprise, my favorite moment from Arlong Park has got to be the walk. Now, the walk is kind of an anime scene. There's a panel of it, and I'll put it up on screen now, the full shot of the panel so you can see it. But for me, that scene really is the anime's adaptation of the Straw Hats just getting up and just walking with I forget the name of the track playing in the background. But that is one of those scenes that I think the anime did such a good job of elevating and using the fact that it's using animation as a medium to really make that scene hit so much harder. So, the walk, iconic. Absolutely iconic, and I think it's an S tier moment. I really do. Next up is Logtown, the town of beginnings and ends, the end of the prologue of One Piece, the end of the East Blue. We get a lot of good moments here. We get more Buggy. We always love more Buggy. We get Smoker. The very entertaining scene of, "Oh, my pants ate your ice cream. Whoopsie daisy." But my favorite scene in Logtown is Zoro going into the swordsmith shop and pulling Sandai Kitetsu out of the barrel, throwing it in the air, and having it perfectly go around his arm. For me, that scene just... it's so cool. Zoro, that just cemented Zoro as, like, cool. He was already really cool before then. But that scene of just watching that sword just go by his hand, Another scene where I think the anime does a really good job of giving that scene a lot of tension, uh, makes it just really, really enjoyable. So, as a scene overall, compared to the rest of our list here, I'm gonna be putting it probably as a B tier moment. I think it's a better moment than the Chushu moment. Uh, but overall, I don't think it hits as hard as anything that would go in A tier. I think it's a solid B tier scene. Next up is Reverse Mountain. Now, I want to give an honorable mention for Reverse Mountain because there's a scene that is only good in the it's not only good in the anime, but the anime makes it funny, really funny, and that is the scene of the Straw Hats yelling at Crocus and the dramatic dun dun dun, the very aggressive camera shifts with the aggressive vine boom sound effect type thing going on. That kills me every time I watch it. I just curl into a ball laughing. It's so funny. But it's not really anything special in the manga. So I can't really give it the best scene in Reverse Mountain for me. So for me, I have to go with the ending of Reverse Mountain. There seems to be a theme with the endings of arcs here. Where Crocus is looking at the Straw Hats as they're going away, and mutters under his breath, maybe these were the pirates we were looking for. Eh, Roger? And it's a little line. It's a very small line, but it's very, very impactful, and just the fact that Crocus was on Roger's crew was just mind-blowing. Love Crocus. I want to see more Crocus. Oda, if you're listening, more Crocus, please. Give me another Roger flashback and give me more Crocus. Crocus is a wonderful character, and that moment is quite good. In comparison to all the other moments that are going to be on this list, though, I think it is also another B tier moment. It is better than the Sandai Kitetsu scene. It has more impact than the Sandai Kitetsu scene, but I don't think it quite deserves A tier. Now Whiskey Peak is next, the beginning of the Alabasta saga. Kind of. I'm not sure where they lump in Reverse Mountain actually, but Whiskey Peak, first arc in the Grand Line, very exciting. I think the best moment of it though is the challenging of Baroque Works by Zoro. The 100 Baroque Works men versus Zoro fight, where he's just like, there's only 100 of you. Let's do this. And he just decimates all of Baroque Works, just puts them in their place. Really does a good job of setting up, okay, yeah, Zoro wasn't just, East Blue good. He was, actually somewhat competent, which he kind of needed after the Mihawk incident, where the first taste of the Grand Line we get is Mihawk walking up and beating the shit out of Zoro. So you kind of needed more to hype up Zoro's performance, and I think that scene does that very, very well. So overall, in terms of placement, I gotta find it here. Where is it? It's in my list somewhere. Zoro, here it is. It's a good scene, but it does not stand out like the rest of a lot of these moments do. I think it's honestly C tier. I think it's the best part of Whiskey Peak, and I think Whiskey Peak is quite enjoyable. But as far as individual moments go, it's just not. It doesn't really cut as well as the others do. Next up, we have Little Garden. Little Garden is kind of a personal favorite arc of mine. It's kind of dumb. It was one of the first One Piece arcs that I actually like watched from start to finish. A bunch of my buddies were watching One Piece, and I would tune in now and then, so I got like Zoro's backstory and like part of Arlong Park. But the first like arc that I sat through and watched all the way was Little Garden, so it kind of has a special place in my heart. The Dory and Broggy fight for me is very special. I don't know how else to put it. It's not like insanely good. It's not something that really stands out. It's our first introduction to the Giants. It's our first introduction to Elbath, which we're maybe gonna go to someday. uh, so it kind of does a lot for the world building, and seeing these mighty warriors of Elbath clashing over and over and over again on repeat, on cycle, to the point to where they barely even like care about what it was about anymore. They just care about fighting. They care about their honor as warriors of Elbath. So Mr. 3 coming in and screwing that all up, it hurts a little bit. It really does. It's something that I think is a good scene. Definitely best scene in the arc, but another one of those, when you compare it to the other peaks of One Piece, it doesn't quite get there. So I think I'm gonna put it at the we'll go bottom of B tier. Next up, after Little Garden, is Drum Island. Drum Island was a very easy choice for me. This scene is up there as one of my favorite scenes in One Piece, period. Absolutely beautiful. And that is Dr. Hiriluk's speech at the end of the Chopper flashback. A man only dies when he is forgotten. It's such a powerful statement, and it really holds true throughout the rest of One Piece. It's one of those scenes that you can always kind of look back to during certain situations and go, you know, Hiriluk was right. Hiriluk was right. He knew what he was talking about as he exploded. Unfortunate. But I think that scene is one of those kind of hallmarks of what One Piece does best, is these very powerful statements that these characters make that really resonate with you, kind of even outside the world of One Piece. And that's a really good example of it. So it's hard for me to give the Dr. Hiriluk anything lower than A tier. Absolutely fantastic moment. One of the best. Easily. Next up is Alabasta. Now, Alabasta is long. A lot of things happen in Alabasta. One of those things is Crocodile. I like Crocodile. I love Crocodile. He's my favorite One Piece antagonist. The thing about Crocodile is he doesn't have a specific moment that shines above the rest. He's just great. He's just fantastic. And because of that, my top moment in Alabasta does not go to the Croc himself. It goes to Vivi and the gang, as the departure from Alabasta is one of the best shots in both the anime and the manga of One Piece. The scene of all the Straw Hats raising their arms, showing the mark that they used to counteract Bon Clay as this symbol of, unity and friendship. I've always liked Vivi as a character. I think it's unfortunate that we haven't really worked her back into the story sooner, because I would have loved to see more of Vivi. But maybe we'll get that soon. Maybe. But that moment at the end of Alabasta is another one of those you always think about it when you think of, okay, what is good One Piece moments here. So I'm gonna give that the S tier. I think it truly deserves it. Now the next arc up on the list is Jaya. I love Jaya. Jaya has so many good moments. It took me a lot of time to decide which one I wanted to pick as my favorite. One of the just best jam-packed arcs full of fantastic scenes. All of them kind of play off of each other. Uh and I think the final one in the order of what I'm going to talk about is my favorite, so I'm going to start from the beginning. And that is the bar scene. Bar scene is just a very, very impactful scene. Watching Luffy and Zoro just tank all these hits from Bellamy and his gang, and people throwing all kinds of shit everywhere, and just not really caring. They just deal with it. The Bellamy pirates are so far beneath them, they don't care. It's like if an ant is like crawling up your skin, and you're just like, I don't feel like putting in the effort to squish you. You're not worth my time. It was such a bold attitude from them that you don't really pick up on at first. You're like, why are they doing this? You're in the same position Nami is watching this situation of like, why? And then as you see them walk out the bar, you get the iconic Blackbeard scene of "A man's dreams will never die." What a way to introduce an antagonist, giving him one of the best quotes in the series. Absolutely fantastic moment. People have done massive analyses on this speech and why it is one of the best moments in One Piece. It is fantastic. It is not my top moment of Jaya either, though, because the best moment for me, and what I just think of every time I think of Jaya, is Luffy versus Bellamy and the final punch. Bellamy being super overconfident, after the bar scene of just like, yeah, no, I don't need to care about this kid. He's dumb. He doesn't matter. Being super overconfident, bouncing around with his spring fruit, high speeds. The anime does a wonderful job of animating this whole section, by the way. Props to the anime for that. Really, really good, like, just feeling of speed from Bellamy. And then all of that fight, all of that build up, just one single punch. Just boom! Knocks him dead. Well, not dead. This is One Piece. People don't die. But that scene, just I was screaming the first time I saw that. I was not ready for Luffy to just one shot him completely. No matter how many good moments Jaya has, that will always reign as my personal favorite. And while I struggle to put it in S tier, I think it will take the cake as the top of A tier. We'll see how that matures as we keep going. Skypiea. Skypiea, I think, is good. I like Skypiea a lot. But Skypiea is one of those arcs that doesn't have a ton of outstanding moments. The one I'm gonna give it to, and this is more of a like favorite panel than a favorite moment. A lot of what I like about Skypiea has become better with later context, and I don't really feel like putting the campfire scene would really be fair to Skypiea, because that wasn't significant then. And now it's like one of the most significant panels in One Piece. So I have to give it to the I really needed a light Sanji scene where he has the cigarette after getting electrocuted by Enel. Big Sanji fan, really good shot, fantastic Sanji moment. Not as good as the Baratier moment. Honestly, probably bottom of B tier. Big fan of Skypiea, just not nothing super stands out in that arc for me. Next is Long Ring Longland, everybody's favorite Foxy arc. Now, thankfully, I don't have to talk about Foxy. Because Long Ring Long Land includes our boy Aokiji. Good old Kuzan. And he is by far the best part of Long Ring Long Land. I don't like Foxy. No. No. Aokiji, yes. He's has such a wonderful presence, and watching him fight with the Straw Hats and seeing Luffy so desperately go out of his way to try and defend Robin in this situation, despite Robin just being like, ah, um, it's another good showcasing of, hey, this is my crew. It's one of the first scenes where you really feel like Luffy is taking control as the captain, because he starts barking orders at everybody. And it doesn't go too well for the Straw Hats, admittedly. It is an admiral they're fighting, and they are not at that level at that point in the series. But I think it does a good job to kind of set up the power scaling for the rest of the series, and power scaling is kind of a weird topic. But I think it does a really good job of setting up, okay, there's still a lot of really strong people that Luffy isn't just gonna one-tap. Because most of early One Piece, Luffy just kind of one-taps it. Like, he struggles a little bit with Arlong. He struggles with Crocodile because he's a Logia. But, like, other than that, Luffy doesn't struggle too bad. Until Aokiji. And I think it does a really good job of setting up that kind of tone for the rest of the series. Aokiji's appearance gonna be a bottom of A tier moment for me. Still my favorite admiral to this day, even though he's not an admiral anymore. Love my man. Next up, Water 7. Oh, Water 7. What a wonderful pair of arcs Water 7 and Enies Lobby are. I am so thankful that they are separate arcs, technically, so that I can talk about both of these moments. Because both of these moments are highlights of One Piece. And spoiler alert, they're both going to be going in S tier. So, first off, Water 7, gotta give it to Luffy versus Usopp. Such an emotional moment in the story. Zoro, giving the ultimatum to Luffy and Usopp in this situation, forcing Luffy to really take control of his captain, something that was very set up in the Long Ring Long Land seen previously of this. Luffy needs to be the captain. He needs to take charge. They're not just strolling around punching people in the face anymore. Things are getting real. They really need to be more than just a group of friends. They really need to be a crew. They need to work together with this kind of hierarchy. And I mean, all the Straw Hats are buddies, but the one person who's not really on board with that is Usopp. He's so very attached to the Going Merry that they need to abandon to keep going further because it's not functioning, and he just can't accept that. He's a very emotional person. He's very grounded in his very human emotions. A lot of people talk about Usopp is kind of the perspective of the main character, or not the main character. Usopp is the perspective of the audience. And this is another one of those situations where you really feel like, no, I don't want to see the merry go. Merry go. I want to keep the ship because you have this emotional attachment to the ship as a viewer, and that is very much portrayed in Usopp, but it doesn't feel unnatural. It's a very natural progression for Usopp. And it does so much for both Usopp and Luffy's characters. Seeing Usopp actually stand a chance against Luffy with the dials and the creative use of that, and just everything about it just breaks me. So Luffy versus Usopp is going to the top of S tier. Enies Lobby. Well, Enies Lobby. I think y'all know what's coming. I want to live. It's been said many a time but I'll say it again. This moment right here is peak One Piece. The emotion behind this scene, the buildup of it for arcs and arcs now. Ever since Robin joined the crew, you kind of pick up on these details. She only refers to them as nicknames until the end of Enies Lobby. She's very distant, very separated from them. She doesn't get a lot of development in Skypiea, and there's a reason for that, is that she's very distant from the Straw Hats. You would expect you get a new crew member the next arc, you're going to see a lot of the crew member. You're going to get to learn more about them, you're going to really feel... You're going to start feeling things for them. But Oda takes the time to space that out a whole arc until we get that Robin development, and that payoff was so worth it. That scene still makes me cry every time. Just being honest, the emotional weight behind I Wanna Live is insane. Easily S tier. Now, after Enies Lobby is post Enies Lobby. Who would have thought? This is kind of a mini arc that does a lot of external world building and picking up on a lot of the things that have been happening in the world at large. My favorite scene is easily our introduction to... well, technically, if you want to be picky about it, we saw it in Chapter 1, but the introduction of Shanks and his Conqueror's Haki abilities on Whitebeard's ship. It's such a good scene, just watching all of these crewmates just pass out. You have no idea why. You have no idea how. Because Haki was really a foreign concept at this point in One Piece. But you're terrified of Shanks when you see it. It's one of those moments that I think is quite good, but in comparison to a lot of other high points in the series, I think it probably only deserves a B tier. And thinking about it, I'm actually going to move the Sanji down to C tier. Ooh. Sanji slander. Oof. Next up, Thriller Bark. You've all seen this one coming. That Thriller Bark, while I enjoy it, most of the core arc itself is a little rough at times, but oh my goodness, is that end payoff so good. And that is, of course, nothing happened. And I mean, there's nothing to talk about because nothing happened. Nothing happened. Anyway, after nothing happened, let's move on to Sabaody. Sabaody is another one of those just fantastic One Piece arcs that has a lot of really good, solid moments in it. For me, it's got to be the Charlos Punch. The Charlos Punch is just so good. Luffy, you have all this built-up resentment for the Celestial Dragons, for Charlos specifically, because of just how much of a bastard he is. And seeing Luffy just sock him in the head, you're like, man, I wish Luffy would punch this guy, but that would probably be a problem. Then you remember, this is Monkey D. Luffy we're talking about. He don't care about no problems he's creating. So he just hauls off and just plows him down onto the ground. Fantastic. Most satisfying punch in anime. Easy A tier. Next up is Amazon Lily. Amazon Lily doesn't have a lot of high point moments for me. I think the best one overall is the scene of Boa showing her back and talking about her backstory with the Celestial Dragons. Overall, though, it's not a very impactful scene for me, so I'm going to put it in C tier. I enjoy Boa Hancock, but I don't know, that scene never really resonated with me super hard. What did resonate with me super hard, though, is my favorite moment from our next arc, and that's Impel Down. Impel Down, well, I feel like I don't like it as much as a lot of other people do. I hear a lot of people really, really praising Impel Down, and I get it. It's a great arc. But there are some things about it that I'm just like, oh, okay. But my favorite moment by far is the scene after Ivankov injects the hormones into Luffy to try and get him healed. And Bon Clay begins to lead this chant amongst the Newkama of basically just cheering him on to fight on, to continue to live. Um, Absolutely wonderful scene. I love Bon Clay. Bon Clay is easily one of my favorite characters in One Piece, and this scene is one of the many reasons why. Just this desperation you can in the anime VA does a fantastic job. You really hear the desperation in his voice. It's a very good moment for me, and I'm gonna give it the A tier because it definitely deserves it. Now, Marineford. It would be cheating for me to just say the whole damn thing. Marineford is great. I love Marineford. It's so hard to pick a moment in Marineford because it's just banger after banger after banger after banger. So, I gotta pick something. So, why not pick the climax? Shanks has come to end this war. Another one of those wonderful scenes that you kind of always think of with Shanks. To be fair, you kind of think of all of Shanks' scenes with Shanks, because, well, it's Shanks. He doesn't show up except to be badass and then walk away. And that's exactly what he did. He showed up, he blocked Akainu, he said, hey, I'm cool. I'm gonna end this war. You wanna fight me? And everyone said no. So Chad moved from Shanks here. I think I'm gonna set it at the bottom of B tier. I know that's gonna be controversial because Marineford definitely has better moments than that moment, but that's just the most impactful one for me. It's the one that I come back to the most when I think single moment in Marineford, because so much of Marineford just rolls into itself to make this fantastic arc. Now, after Marineford, we have the post-war arc, and the post-war arc gets one pretty simple answer from me. And while the backstory of the Three Musketeers, as I'm gonna call them, is really good, the most impactful scene is Luffy realizing that he may not have Ace, he may have failed, but he still has his crew. It's another one of those tearjerker emotional scenes that you really feel after this very long journey with the Straw Hats. It'd be a disservice to put this in anything but S. Wonderful scene, wonderful moment. Now, onto the time skip. Now, the time skip arcs are a little bit longer, so this won't take as long as pre-time skip will. The first arc is technically Return to Sabaody. And I'm glad that this is a separate arc because I can talk about the scene with Kuma. Seeing Kuma broken down in front of the Thousand Sunny, protecting it during the 2-year time skip, you kind of see Kuma as this bad guy throughout from the war to the original Sabaody arc. All of this, you're very much okay. Kuma is a villain. Kuma is a bad guy. We don't like no Kuma. But this single moment entirely redeems the entire situation. It just immediately flips your perspective on Kuma as a character. And it's very clear that that was the intention that Oda took, because he doesn't really take a lot of time to try and redeem Kuma after that. He just expects you to have accepted that Kuma is cool for the rest of the story. And that's perfectly fine, because this moment is very striking and very, impactful. It is a smaller moment, though. I'm gonna give it B tier because of that. Because, once again, it's a great moment. All of these moments are great, except for maybe the eating the Usopp part. but it just, compared to a lot of the other moments, I just can't put it much higher than that. After that is Fishman Island. I don't like Fishman Island. I'm sorry, I don't. But what I do like is at the end of Fishman Island, when Luffy takes his first step of becoming a truly powerful pirate, when he declares that Fishman Island is his territory and he is claiming it. That is one of those scenes that really cements Luffy as this powerhouse, as this presence in the world. They're not just a ragtag group of, dumb kids anymore. They are a truly powerful pirate crew that has a massive presence in the Grand Line. And that scene cements it for me. Very good. Very, very powerful. Very strong moment for me as well. Another one of those, it'd be a disservice to put it anywhere other than A tier. After that is Punk Hazard. Punk Hazard reintroduces another one of my favorite characters, and that is Trafalgar Law. I like Law. He's pretty cool. He do the room, and then he slice all of Punk Hazard in half. Now, yes, Zoro also cuts Pika in half later in Dressrosa, and that's very cool. But to see Law do it, insane moment. Just mind-blowing. So we're gonna give that to Punk Hazard. Punk Hazard as an arc is kind of whatever, so I'm gonna put this as a middle of B tier moment. Punk Hazard is an okay arc. Not the strongest the time skip has to offer. Dressrosa, on the other hand, is another one of those, there are so many good moments, it's hard to pick one. But as a Law enjoyer, I'm going to have to pick Law's backstory. Specifically, Corazon protecting Law in the box as Doflamingo shoots the shit out of him. Very, very strong scene. All of Law's backstory is great. Law's backstory is my favorite backstory in One Piece. At some point, I'll probably have to do a video on why I love his backstory so much. But this scene is one of those many reasons. And I think it's the best scene in the backstory. And I think the backstory is probably some of the strongest parts of Dressrosa, between Laws and Doflamingos and all of that you get. Plus kind of already having Bellamy's backstory because of it happening in the story. Very strong backstories in Dressrosa, but Laws takes the cake. As far as ranking it goes, this is another definitely belongs in A tier. I know A tier is getting kind of cluttered, but I think that's fair. After Dressrosa, very long arc, we get a very small arc, and that is Zou. I love Zou. It's short, it's sweet, it's brilliant. The entire arc, you're like, oh no, we're gonna have this forced conflict between the Minks and the Samurai because of this Raizo guy. Fuck Raizo. What's wrong with this dude? Where even is he? You almost want to beat up Raizo yourself. And then it all flips with one single scene. Raizo Dono is safe. This is another one of those, this is one of my favorite moments in One Piece. I like this scene more than nothing happened. Easy S tier. Brilliant writing from Oda. It is what makes Zou so good. Like, that scene, you can, like, a lot of the other arcs, if you took one of these scenes out, arc wouldn't be as good, but there would still be a lot of good moments that you could pick from. If you took this out of Zou would no longer be as good of an arc. It would really drop down in quality just by taking the scene away. It's so, so good. After Zou is my favorite arc, Whole Cake Island. I love Whole Cake. I love Sanji. I've said these things before. and I'll say them again. I love Whole Cake. I love Sanji. Sanji is my favorite Straw Hat. I cried the entire time I read Sanji versus Luffy. I'm not even joking. It hurt. This is another one of those S tier moments for me that probably doesn't sit as high for other people. I love it. Next up, we have the Reverie. The Reverie is kind of a mini arc. It's kind of small. Not a lot happens. But I think the most standout moment is probably Eames' introduction with the empty throne, seeing the Gorosei kneeling down. Quite a good scene. Not a great scene. That's another one of those, it's the best scene in the arc, but I don't know if I'd call it a great scene overall compared to the juggernauts that are up here. Now, after that, we have Wano. Now, Wano is big. It's kind of chunky. So I'm going to do a moment from each act. And unfortunately, I've realized I don't have the Act 3 moment in the tier list. So I'm just going to talk about that when we get there. Because good job, good preparation. For Act 1, the best moment is in the first chapter, for me. The scene of Zoro having to commit seppuku and turning the little tiny dagger on the people that are executing him, and just that big slash and the, I'm sorry, Kinemon, afterward. It's all the things I like about Zoro, like, just condensed into one scene, and that's great. It is a B tier scene. No, it's an A tier scene, definitely. Act 2. Act 2 is long. And for Wano, that's saying something. There are a lot of points in Act 2 that I don't really enjoy. But what I do enjoy, a lot more than Kid, is Killer. I love Killer. I like Killer more than Kid. Controversial, I know. Killer is great. Why is Killer great? Because of Wano Act 2. So I'm gonna give Wano Act 2 to the Killer reveal scene. Another one of those wonderfully set up moments that just, when you get to it, it hits. Just instantly. Another fantastic scene from Oda. I'm gonna give it top of B. Now, lastly, as I said, I don't have my third act scene in here. I forgot to grab it. So we're going to talk about it for a little bit. There are two things. There is an honorable mention, and then I will have the actual scene. The honorable mention goes to Oden's flashback. It's so different than the rest of Wano, I honestly feel like it deserves its own mention. And because of that, I'm going to, and that is the Roger Laughed scene. That panel is amazing. The anime scene is amazing. Everything about that is amazing. As a One Piece fan, you hit that and you're like, I didn't know I needed this, but I love it. That scene belongs in S tier. My favorite scene in Wano is not that. It's actually my favorite scene in all of Wano, by the way. If I had to combine the acts, this is what would win. And that is manga spoilers, by the way, for anyone who's made it through this video as an anime only. That is at the end of Act 3. Suki Momonosuke, your new shogun. Seeing adult Momo for the first time brought a tear to my eye. Momo is kind of a controversial character in the One Piece community. I know a lot of people really do not like how whiny Momo is through a lot of post time skip. I love him. I think his growth is great. A lot of the scenes that contributed to it are fantastic. A highlight that comes to mind is Luffy shouting at him to bite Kaido, and he does. And Luffy goes, "You just bit an Emperor of the Sea. Do you really think you should be scared of anything anymore?" And all that build up and all that to see the payoff of seeing him for the first time. Striking. Wonderful and beautiful. I'll put a picture on screen of the panel that I was going to put in the tier list because I forgot. But I would say that moment is another S tier moment for me. It is a payoff of all of Wano that I didn't know I needed until I got to it. And then when I saw it, the emotions were just so strong. I only recently caught up to One Piece. I caught up during Wano Act 2. So Act 3 was kind of my first time getting these moments weekly. And I think that's part of the reason why that moment was so special to me. It was kind of that my first really big One Piece moment that felt super impactful that I had read as it happened. Fantastic. And I'm not going to cover the next manga arc that we've started because we're 7 chapters in at the time of recording this, I believe. I'm not ranking. You know what? If you want something, Bonnie, there you go. But with that is my list of favorite One Piece moments by arc and ranking them on a tier list because tier lists are cool. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what your guys' favorite moments by arc are and how different they are from mine. Or if you agree or if you disagree, or, if you think that, Zoro gobbling Usopp should be the best moment in all of One Piece. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what other kinds of content you would like to see on this channel. I'm just starting out, so I'm kind of experimenting a little bit with what I want to do. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe, all that fun stuff that YouTubers list off at the beginning and end of their videos. Yeah, with that, that's all I've got. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.